Okay, so finding myself with not so much else to do, I thought I would make a little video about the use of the speaking voice and a healthy way to use your speaking voice and how we can use different personae, different accents, different languages even to find a healthier vocal placement for our speaking voice. And this is relevant for singers because the way that you use your speaking voice heavily impacts the way that your singing voice will sound. If you use your speaking voice in a suboptimal way, then you can expect that to have a significant impact on your singing voice. This is also going to be a useful video for those suffering from voice disorders, muscle tension dysphonia type stuff, of which, and I've been one of those people. So, one of the little tools, one of the little tricks that I would use when my own voice was in a bad way was to switch to a different accent. And there are a couple of different accents that are particularly conducive to positive, optimal speaking voice use. Now, for an English speaker such as myself, and I obviously have a sort of what you might call a standard English accent, there's a bit of a tendency, which I have to still continually kind of resist a little bit to this day, to sort of drop my voice into my throat and to speak perpetually in a slightly mumbly low pitch. And when you do this enough, it really, really fatigues your throat. So what I'm talking about, here's how I used to talk. This is kind of how I used to talk all the time, and I would just kind of drop it down there, and I'm speaking to you basically at the lowest pitch that I can phonate, and I would kind of and I see a lot of people doing this, and the way I got around this, partly it was a complex process getting back to sort of vocal wellness, but the way that I got around this was by playing with, among other things, Italian and also Welsh. Now, I'm actually from South Wales, so the latter wasn't too difficult for me to tune into. Now, there isn't only one Welsh accent. As you get up north, it starts to get a little bit more guttural and a bit less useful for our purposes. But there's a certain kind of familiar sing-song Welsh sound. Sounds something like this. Right, so I would sort of just switch. It helps to be a good mimic. But I would sort of just switch to this sound, you see. And when I would switch to this sound, immediately it would sort of short-circuit all of those bad habits that I'd have in my normal English speaking voice, which was kind of placed down here in my throat. As soon as I start to talk in a Welsh accent, it sort of springs up, and it becomes it's a higher pitch. Okay, so I'm using a higher, like the resting pitch that I'm using is higher. It doesn't sound higher as in shrill because the throat's more relaxed, but the pitch is higher, right? So again, the other thing that's nice about the Welsh accent is it's very vowely, and it's very sort of, it's got a nice spring to it, it's got a nice sort of music, right? So it would immediately, there's a sense of lifting the voice up, okay? Now the same is true with the Italian sound. The Italian sound, again, I'm not insensitive to the fact that there are probably lots of different accents within Italy, different dialects, etc., etc., but generally speaking, you think of that classic sort of Italian sound, and the way that the vowels are created, the purity of the vowels, the sense of, quote, forwardness, the brightness, the projection. It's very much like an outdoor voice kind of language, right? So, I don't speak Italian, but if I just be like, andiamo, a presto, buongiorno, buonasera, it's got actually quite a similar quality to the Welsh sound in a lot of ways. So what I would do when I started feeling my voice kind of drop into my throat and my throat starting to get tired, and I still employ this to this day because old habits die very, very hard, and sometimes I'm still, particularly when I'm tired or I'm feeling a little bit depressed, I'll kind of let it fall down into my throat, and then that makes me feel worse because my throat starts to get uncomfortable. I tune in to one of those two accents, and I'm sure there are many more that you can use as kind of templates or springboards for the same result. but I establish it. I start to, for example, if I just use the Welsh sound and I start to lift my voice up like this, and now if I just go back to my English voice, the sort of standard English voice that I use, you can feel that it takes me to a higher pitch. And it has this sense of openness, it has this sense of projection, it has this sense of animation, it has this energy behind it, and it's as though I'm kind of floating my voice rather than having to sort of grab it down here in my throat all the time. And this, if you're used to using your voice in this very, very dropped way, this is going to take some serious practice to get the hang of and to inculcate into your muscle memory, right? So don't try it for a couple of days and then just give up. You know, you might have to just continually, like one thing that I would do is just go around talking to myself all the time. So like some complete lunatic. So I'd be like, a presto, find that little space, find that zone. Or I could use this accent here and then just migrate that sound into my English voice, and then I just do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z, right? And it's almost like the sort of voice that you would use when reading a poem, for example, or doing theatre, or teaching a classroom of children, right? You want to get heard, you want to have their attention, you don't want to be shouting, so you use this sort of slightly elevated vocal timbre, this slightly elevated vocal character. Okay, so play with that. If you're someone who struggles with voice discomfort, with a voice disorder, I'm not guaranteeing that this is going to be a complete panacea, but it's certainly an interesting avenue of inquiry. It certainly helped me a lot. And if you're someone who suspects that the way that your speaking voice might be negatively affecting your singing voice, this is also something that's worth playing with. And you know, the other thing is that this kind of works both ways. So let's say you use this kind of sing-song quality to get your speaking voice to a healthier place. You can then migrate that same quality in your speaking voice back to your singing voice, right? So a lot of the time when people sing, I'm kind of going a little bit off piste here, but when people sing, they will do something different with their voice. They will do something weird, something affected. I call it getting singy, right? So breathiness is a really, really common one. But once you've established this nice sing-song lifted way of using your speaking voice, then you can kind of then sort of export that back into your singing voice, right? So if you say, and you just sort of find that play. One more thing, while it occurs to me, because obviously we've all got different voice types. What kind of ideal pitch should you be speaking at? How do you determine that? Well, one way is to say, right? And just feel where, in a sort of spontaneous, natural way, like, like that, and just feel where it resonates. And a good rule of thumb is that your speaking voice should perpetually resonate somewhere around here, sort of between the nose and the lip, and the upper lip there, right? So you can hear my voice drop down there a little bit. See what I mean? I have to kind of work at this myself. So when I use this kind of quote vocal placement or resting voice, resting speaking pitch, I kind of feel like the primary point of resonation is somewhere around this area here. Anything higher than that, and it starts to get a little bit too high, and anything lower than that, it starts to feel a little bit too low, a little bit stuck. So try and you can use that to try and find your optimal speaking pitch. I hope that helps.